So welcome everyone to the reMarkable Paper Pro Move. Roughly about a year ago, reMarkable came out with their new flagship device, which is the reMarkable Paper Pro at 11.8 inches, and introduced something very new, which is their own canvas color display, which is based on the Gallery e-ink screen. And now, fast forward almost exactly to the day a year later, we have a new device from reMarkable as well, and a new member of the Paper Pro family, and it's the reMarkable Paper Pro Move. This time it's of a drastically different type of a format, because whereas Paper Pro went bigger, well, Move is exactly what the name suggests. It's the capabilities and functionalities that the Paper Pro gives you, but on the move. This device came as a surprise to me, because when I was invited to their headquarters to, kind of share what they have coming up, I was pretty much sure, like, okay, the logical move is going to be the 10.3 inch 300 ppi monochromatic reMarkable 3 or something like that, because that is what people have been going for, especially since the move with the Paper Pro and the canvas color display. While I do maintain that it is a really important step in the development of ePaper devices, it is not for everyone. And then they actually go ahead and double down and release another Paper Pro. So the same type of color canvas based on Gallery 3 panel that we had on Paper Pro is on the Move, or Paper Pro Move as well, except that this time we are in this really lovely 9:16 or 16:9 format, but much more importantly in this portable, smaller format. It's a Paper Pro, but this time on the Move, and as such it inherits the design of its bigger brother exactly the same. So we have the exact same lovely type of aluminum alloy unibody that has the same color, same type of fit and finish, and the same type of front as well. Same type of tint around the screen is here as well. Lovely build quality, as well as it was on the Paper Pro, it is maintained here on the Paper Pro Move. Those with keener eyes will notice that is a little bit thicker than the Paper Pro itself, which of course it has to be, because it has less real estate to work with to pack all of the stuff inside. And during the presentation, I was very lucky to have seen the prototypes, and a very special clear prototype, which I can't really share any images with you, but it was very nice to see the insides and how it was all designed and packed up, and the engineering behind it was very interesting. When we turn the Paper Pro on its back, we see that this is a whole unibody, like the same type of aluminum alloy, but with the Paper Pro Move there is a difference. The back is this less slippery than a metal alloy type of surface, which is plastic. Thankfully, we still have the anti-slip rubber feet there so that it doesn't slip around when it's on the surface. I actually prefer this simply because it makes the device lighter, it's less prone to damage, and it is more flexible. And that is especially important for devices that are, densely packed up inside. Overall, I think that this format is a really, really fresh kind of a thing to see, because like the Paper Pro, which was not 10.3 or 13.3, and it proved to be a really good format for this type of use, I'm kind of hoping that when I get to spend a little bit more time with the Move, that their thinking behind embracing this type of format will make more sense. What I can attest to immediately now upon just opening it up is that it fits into one hand very, very comfortably, and I can see that I will be able to do operations with one hand comfortably, but with the left hand. With the right hand, well, the pen is going to kind of get in the way a little bit, at least for me, because it's a really large pen. With the Paper Pro Move, you get the pen bundled. So it's really good to see that you have a bundle option available finally. But what's less good is that you do not have an option not to choose with the pen. So for example, if you already have your Paper Pro and you've paid quite a decent amount of money for the Paper Pro and maybe for the premium pen and all of that kind of stuff, when you're purchasing your Paper Pro Move, at least during the release cycle, you won't be able to choose one without the pen, and you will have to buy the pack that includes the pen that doubles up with what you already have, because it's going to be the exact same pen that you already have, and it works exactly the same on the Move as well. So if you were looking for maybe saving up those $80 for a standard marker, because that standard marker costs quite a lot, you won't have that option, unfortunately. I wouldn't have had a problem if they had designed a shorter and thinner pen that wouldn't have interfered with holding the device there, because then you would get an additional pen as well that you may prefer and that you may actually use. That, I think, is something that is bothering me when I'm kind of holding it and dealing with the device. It's just this little bit that's kind of bugging me no matter what I do, because it's running almost the entirety of the length of the device. As a companion to the Paper Pro, it really fits so nicely into this whole ecosystem, and there's a very, very interesting bit of correlation where the length of the Paper Pro Move is almost exactly the same as the width of the Paper Pro. Useless bit of trivia, but kind of nice. My first impressions are that I really love the format of this. It's better than Book's Palmas, because when I'm holding it, I know that I'm not holding something that resembles a smartphone. It is better than a traditional square kind of sized e-reader, for example 7.8-inch e-readers or 8-inch e-readers, because when I hold those, they resemble just ever so slightly too big and bulky to consider truly portable. And again, when I hold it, it seems like I'm holding a tablet. When I'm holding this, the Paper Pro Move, the format, the build quality, the lightness, the thickness, all of it, the whole shebang, doesn't feel like a smartphone, doesn't feel like a tablet. It actually manages to do something that for me reMarkable 1 did, which was when I picked it up and held it in the hand, it felt like something different. And to me, that is an important aspect of interaction with a device, especially if we're talking about a device that's supposed to be with you on the move, as the name of the product actually suggests. During the presentation, I saw the whole array of available covers and accessories that I will be showing on the screen now, and they look really, really quite nice. What they've provided for the review as the review kit are two covers, the brown one, which is the leather one, and that one's fine, everything fits, and it's the same type of logic and solutions as we've had with the covers for the Paper Pro. But the one that I actually like is is the other one, the blue one, because the blue color is really rather gorgeous. Now, this material, for example, while it is absolutely beautiful to hold and feel, and the color is wonderful, etc., etc., it is the same material that they've developed and used on the covers for the Paper Pro. And while I personally haven't really experienced that on my cover yet, I have started to experience it. But there's a lot of users that report that this material basically gets dirty and dusty, kind of sucks in the dust and gets more quickly more dirty than regular canvas cover style material would. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. But as it is now kind of brand new and fresh, this blue color and this type of fitting is absolutely wonderful, because when I'm holding this, the thing that it reminds me most of is actually a paper notebook. If I imagine that this was a hardcover notebook, only the weight aspect would tell my brain that this is not an actual notebook. And that further plays into this whole kind of vision that they apparently have had and worked on for the Paper Pro Move. From all of those aspects, just from the design point alone and the idea alone, I really, really love what they have done here. The sustainability and repairability aspect of the device itself. They've introduced that concept with Paper Pro initially by removing glue altogether and relying mostly on mechanical fittings for the screen and for every other component in there. They still had a little bit of double-sided sticky tape, and they do still retain just a smidge of double-sided sticky tape on the reMarkable Paper Pro Move, but even less so than what they've had on the reMarkable Paper Pro. And the introduction of this plastic back here also further reduces and improves the repairability, because now it is actually serviceable from both sides, and it's been designed that it can be easily opened up by a serviceable technician, right? So you still can't do it on your own like you can do with the SuperNote Manta, but refurbishing a device that actually comes back to them is now a much easier, cheaper and faster process, which is an important aspect for a device, especially when you take into consideration that when I discussed with them their goal for sustainability for their products and support for their products is 10 years. And that explains why reMarkable 1, even after 8 years, is still supported. And I can't even begin to imagine the amount of headaches that that actually involves and introduces to the overall team and the development, because you could just easily say with full rights, like even after like 7 years, you could have said like, okay, enough's enough, we gotta move on and we're stopping the support, but they're not. Respect has to be given where respect is due, and reMarkable is actually showing something really remarkable, where they have that really difficult dedication of supporting their devices up to 10 years. How sustainable that is going to be in the coming years, we shall see. Additionally, all of the aluminum alloys here are 100% recycled. I gotta admit, handling it now, just here in front of the camera and everything, there's something about this format. There's something about this format that just fits so nicely. And it's not just the format, it's the weight distribution as well, and how it handles in the hand. As soon as you remove the weight and the metal and you make it more kind of portable, I feel more secure to handle this, and even if I let it down, it doesn't matter. And yeah, that's another point as well. They've done tons of drop testing on this one, and it's supposed to be pretty rugged. I didn't ask them about the IP certification, whether it's splash proof, waterproof, or anything like that, because if you have a device that's on the move, that would be an important consideration. So it's going to be interesting to hear about that. So let's do the first power up and see how the onboarding functionality is on the whole reMarkable platform with the Paper Pro Move as well. Because when you have a smaller format and of a different aspect ratio format. Now, this is a really important aspect here, that Paper Pro Move has a different aspect ratio screen than the previous devices, because that can wreak absolute havoc on an already existing operating system. And now the update 3.22 makes perfect sense with the dockable and movable toolbar, because otherwise that would not have worked on this device. So let's go next. To my eyes, it appears that there's more contrast and more crispness of the screen, and this screen does have marginally denser PPI than the reMarkable Paper Pro does. So we go through the whole thing. All right, we're connected, so we're gonna update and restart. Just a quick call to action before we move on with the video, because I need your guys' help. My deep guide is in trouble because the Gemini, or the AI overload that is now dictating what the YouTube algorithm is going to deliver to you as search results and as recommendations, has been completely burying the My Deep Guide content all over the place. Just open up an incognito tab in your browser, go to YouTube and do a Supernote search or a books search or a reMarkable search, and see how many videos and what kinds of videos from what types of channels you have to actually go through before you run into one, or the first one, or maybe even two videos from My Deep Guide. The metrics don't lie. The engagement of people who are actually delivered the video is super high. So people are really receptive and happy to see the videos from My Deep Guide still, which is great. But the problem is they do not get to see it. So much so that even subscribers don't get notifications when new videos are out on My Deep Guide. So it's effectively being completely killed off. So I do need your help. I don't want to start endlessly regurgitating top 10 lists, the best, the worst, this one or that one, and just creating the that is actual content of YouTube today. But that is actively being and really aggressively being discouraged by the YouTube as a platform. So if you do want to help, I really do appreciate it, and you can do that easily by watching videos, liking, subscribing if you are not subscribed, and there's well over 50% of you who are watching this content who are not subscribed, and also most importantly by reposting videos on social media channels, Reddit, and all of that kind of stuff. And hopefully that will make a change and make the AI overlord understand that, hey, even though this is not regurgitating all the trashy kind of stuff, people are kind of into this, and maybe I should offer it as a search result when people are looking for it, and maybe even as a recommendation. So if you decide to do that, I'm very grateful. And now, onwards with the video. There we go, we're paired up to my account. For now, I shall skip this. I am right-handed and I am good to go. And now we have the information about the update 3.22. Video on that update is coming after this video, so the same week. And already, while I was going through all of that, it's actually synchronizing. Usually the Paper Pro would get hot during this time, and I would definitely feel it there. But in this case, with the Paper Pro Move, I know, I've seen where the SoC goes, and I could, if I really tried, I could feel just a little tiny bit of difference in heating. I think I spoke too early. Yeah, you definitely feel that it's actually getting a little bit warmer, although it is synchronizing 445 files, so it is working overtime here. What I've already noticed while just moving it around is that the accelerometer, well, it's equipped with an accelerometer, but it's working really nicely and quickly. Let me see, how is it for typing like on a smartphone? So move, test, yes, very responsive. And although the pen is in the way, I am still able to kind of type in normally as I would on a smartphone. And yes, I do have some typos here, but the responsiveness of the typing is quite good, at least in this aspect here. So let's choose a ballpoint pen and dark blue, for example, so that we can write on this one. I've been doing the testing here on the notebook to get a feel for the writing, for the screen itself, and the overall performance. And here are my first impressions. The first impression is that I can perceive no performance differences between the Paper Pro and the Paper Pro Move. So the move to a more modern and more efficient SoC that's dual core seems to have been a carefully calculated design move on their part. If you've had any of those concerns that it's going to affect the writing, which I think is the main point of a device like this, I can see or perceive no difference whatsoever. For the review that I'm going to be doing towards the end of the month, I'm going to be putting it through the DAF testing methodology, and that is going to reveal in, cold, hard fact details what are the actual performance differences between these two. But the first human type of impression that I get is that I do not see it or perceive it as slower or faster than the Paper Pro. It pretty much feels the same. One aspect that does feel a little bit faster is basically the refreshing of the screen. I think that it's less messy. It's stupid to say that it's better or less blinky. It's as blinky and it's as gradual and all of that kind of stuff. It's doing all of the same stuff as before, right? So first yellow, then it's making blah 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 when which ink palettes are being refreshed gradually. So you do have the same problem that you have with the Paper Pro, the blinkiness and the lack of responsiveness compared to a traditional kind of e-ink device. And also, if there were no fancy refresh kind of things, you can see that the ghosting becomes absolutely monstrous, but the system is equipped with an intelligent refresh, so in normal type of use case scenarios you shouldn't experience a lot of that type of ghosting, but it's possible. So on the Paper Pro it was happening, especially with the user interface elements, and that is something that's kind of easy to test. So let's go here and see if we're gonna get remnants here. Actually, it's a bit better. So for me, this looks a little bit better, but there was also another aspect that's unfortunate with the Paper Pro, my personal one, and that is that over time, the ability for it to deghost certain areas of the screen diminished. Whether or not that's going to be true for this panel and this device, well, only time can tell. The other one felt good at the beginning as well, but over time it kind of went down. So we'll see if the same is true for this one as well. The color representations for writing at least is actually quite nice. It has the same type of cheat type of methodology where it writes in in a black kind of color or a dark ink, and then it refreshes to a true kind of color method once you're done with writing, and you end up with nice colorful looking type of notes for you. Even the yellow one is actually nicely visible once it's refreshed, but during the writing it is actually very, very difficult to see because of the gallery screens or the color canvas screens. Natural kind of white color is really, really kind of yellowish, darkish of a tone, and then the yellow color is the most difficult one to actually differentiate itself nicely. Magenta is really nicely rendered. Blue is good. Green, so-so. The red is really not there, so it's very, very much struggling with the red. And the black, there are no black pixels on this, so it's going to be dark indigo, as you can see. So this is black and this is supposed to be black, but there is definitive difference between blue and black, so there is that as well. Yeah, definitely there is a difference, and a good difference on the Paper Pro Move. So as you can see, both of the devices have the front light completely turned off, yet what we can see is at least I can see, I'm not sure if the camera is going to catch it, but there is a clear difference in the brightness of the white color or the native screen color and the uniformity of that screen color, because on the Paper Pro you have this yellowing on the corner and overall it's not really that uniform, and it is much darker than what we see on the Paper Pro Move. I'm not going to go through all of the tools and all of that kind of stuff. If you're interested in that, it has already been covered in my in-depth review of the reMarkable Paper Pro, which you will be able to find somewhere around here. The other aspect that I wanted to test is what happens when we flip to this kind of format. All right, so then it kind of centers it like this. Okay, and for me, yes, you can use it like this, but the 16:9 or the 9:16 format doesn't really lend itself well for that type of use. I think it's good for media consumption. It's not really great for writing, for me personally at least, simply because I like to have a taller overview of the content that I'm working with, and this type of thing I find just simply too limiting, and I much more prefer the vertical layout. All right, let's see how does it actually handle documents that were created on a different format. So it scales them down. Okay, what happens if you go to a wide? Then it goes into a wider format. All right, so that width thing that I was talking about, that's meaningful because while this is a smaller format, it is getting toasty. So yeah, it is something that you definitely feel that it's kind of getting warm. What's actually interesting is that, as with any other smaller device, you are able to get more visibility by flipping it over into a landscape format. And they've done obviously some fixes here to make sure that the old type of, or the other devices type of notebooks are rendered in an okay manner here. But as you can see, it is much smaller. And what I'm very curious about is what happens if I continue writing with the same type of a fine liner, because I always use fine liner medium. And if I continue writing here, this works properly. And it works properly because they are not doing anything not smart. They are actually just scaling it. And now the strokes are scaling with the scale aspect or the zoom aspect, and that works properly. So this is an overall complete experience. This could have been an area where move to the move or move to this different aspect ratio could have fallen apart very quickly if the user interface and user experience wasn't done correctly. And this is an area that required a lot of work, a lot of back and forth, and a lot of thought and testing, and they have actually delivered and done this in a nice way. So I really like what they've done and what the reMarkable software side of things is delivering for this type of environment. This is a seamless experience, and you will be able to seamlessly go between a larger and a different format device down to this one and skip from one to another and not have to ruin the experience on the same document. That is very important, and they have nailed that. What's interesting is that the text formatting has kind of changed and is now in part of the keyboard itself. But let's see, what does the typing change do? So with the narrow format, medium format, and the wide format. All right, so the wide format will go outside of the boundaries, but we've discussed that in the meeting. That is because the wide format will then fit into the landscape, right? And that is one way of doing it. What I like about this is that the narrow column fits pretty much perfectly to the width of this device. And that was not the case with either narrow, medium, or wide on either reMarkable 2 or the Paper Pro or reMarkable 1. So reMarkable Paper Pro Move is the first one where your typing experience in the notebook can be experienced in a proper way, so to speak, that it's normally formatted and it basically fits the device. I wish that they would kind of manage this aspect so that it fits other aspect ratios of other devices as well as it does here on the Move. All right, before I proceed with other types of documents, I wanted to check the color sheet here, how it renders different colors, and you can see it represented here. And what I find really, really surprising is that the yellow aspect is quite good. The red one is still a little bit too orange, but it's okay, and that affects, of course, the brown colors. And the green one is way too dark, and yeah, that is always a problem of a TMIC screen because it's not an RGB screen, it's a cyan, yellow, magenta type of screen. But you can see the overall calibration of colors, and the display of colors is pretty much similar, or maybe even better than on the Paper Pro. I will be doing the direct comparisons in a later video. This is just first impressions. All right, so let's first start with something that should be easier for a format like this, and that is reflowable content. So EPUBs. So let's open up on EPUB and see how it flows. Okay, well, that's not what I would have expected because it's not really fitting the page. So let's see, can we adjust the view? We can page margins. Can we make them even narrower? Misalignment may occur. Okay, confirm. Let's just see what it does because it's going to take a long time. There we go. So narrow seems to fit well for an EPUB. And let's see the performance of reading throughout all of this. Does this lend itself to be an okay e-reader one-handed? The formatting kind of works, so that's okay. Now let's get on to the more difficult aspect, and that is the PDF files. So I'm just going to open one of the standard ones that I normally use, and this is exactly what I thought that you would have as a problem with this format, because documents are usually adapted to an A4 format, which is much more closer to 4.3 than to 9.16. However, what should work is flipping around here, and then it automatically fits to width, which is good. So fitting to width is nice. However, here we get to experience that problem that I've been droning on and on and on and on for years now. Ever since they actually introduced the landscape format on the reMarkable, and that is when you're in the landscape format and you are reading a document, you should at the very least need to have an option to offer to a user what the next page gesture will do, because right now it will simply flip to the next page, and that is not a convenient way of using this, especially not on a format like this, because in order to read a full page, what it requires you to do is to do this. And that would have been fine if the technology and if the device and if the environment was able to do that seamlessly, but it's not. This is an event. You can overshoot the page. They have this outside of the margins things, and then you have to kind of zoom in, and that zoom in then becomes like a complete mess. Thankfully, they've added that button that you can just tap on it to fit the width. But for me, this is not an easy way to read things, especially with the blinkiness and everything. This would be a major distraction to read a document on a format like this. And I think it's unnecessary, because the simplest solution would be that the page flip next button simply moves the page for you to the next portion of the page, when you reach the end, flip on over to the next page, and in the reverse as well. We have that on the books, we have that on Supernote, we have that on so many other platforms. There's no reason why it's not going to be part of reMarkable platform, especially now with the Move. On the others, it was like a nice to have. On the Move, this is an absolute requirement. So the documents can effectively be used only in the landscape format, for me at least, because this makes them way too small. Let's try some other documents as well, just to kind of show my point. So let's open, I don't know, anything else and just see, can you use them in this type of format? For me, no. And it's not really surprising, because this format is not meant for that. And in order to use it in the other type of a format, or the landscape orientation, it's, yeah, I'm running into that issue that I described previously. However, when you do run into a document that is of this format, then it actually becomes a really, really awesome reading type of an experience once the refreshing is all done by the device itself. So yeah, here we have Peanuts, but it managed the original one here, but here it doesn't understand where the content is, so it kind of, yeah, overshot quite a bit, because we're missing a lot of content here. And here, yep, here it got it. Here, not so much. It's trying, but it doesn't really manage to do it. And if we go to landscape and try to fit to height, there we go. So here we can fit to height as far as the format goes, and that's also a way to look at it and read the content. So there are options, definitely, but as soon as you start reading content, then you are going to run into the issue of the the gallery panel, and that is something that you cannot avoid, because that's the heart of the device. And if you don't like it, it's not gonna get any better. That blinkiness, refreshiness, the slowness, all of that, it's exactly the same as it was on the reMarkable Paper Pro. Finally, let's do the test of the rendering of the colors. It's not really ideal because it's cutting content, but you can at least get a glimpse of how the colors are represented on this device and how the refresh rate is on this device. This is without the front light, but this performs very, very similar to the Paper Pro, which means quite good, and it offers a different type of quality than what you are able to get with the Kaleido panel technology, for example, on Boox devices or Bigme devices that use Kaleido technology. Overall, this looks really, really pretty. However, you need to be aware of the limitations of this format. And in order to fit it to width, I would need to go here, adjust view, and then fit to width, and then it's gonna say like, okay, so here you want me to use fit to width, and then I'm gonna be able to kind of zoom out and tell it, hey, fit to width again. So it's an okay kind of a system, and it kind of works, but as you can see, the format doesn't really lend itself perfectly for reading documents, especially coupled with the refresh speeds, the page flipping functionality in landscape format, and all of those things. So there you go, reMarkable Paper Pro Move. It's now out, and I am quite excited about this one. I'm more excited about this than I was with the reMarkable Paper Pro, even though it's largely the same, right? And it shouldn't be up my alley because of the PDF limitations and the readability and all that kind of stuff. But actually, with this format and the functionalities that the reMarkable as a platform already has, especially with after the update 3.22, this is something that can easily be like a portable notebook that you just use to jot down ideas, and you have it with yourself all the time, and yeah, it's just your companion that's always with you, so that it's there that you jot down ideas or do work with the meeting, on a meeting, or anything like that. The format is incredibly alluring, for me at least, and the overall package, especially with this blue one, it just tickles my fancy, and something about it, all about it, the first impressions are that this is really interesting and this could be a very impactful device. I don't think that the shortcomings that it introduces and it requires are going to be for everyone. So not everyone is going to be able to overcome the limitations of this technology. But I think that's fine too, because it doesn't really care. It just says like, hello, this is who I am, this is what I do. Whether you like it or not, it's totally up to you, but I exist. And you decide what you want to do with that fact. And you gotta respect that. So there you have it, reMarkable Paper Pro Move, my first impressions of the device. Please do let me know in the comments down below, what are your thoughts, what are your first impressions, and what are the things that you would like to actually see and me test for the upcoming review of this device. My first impressions are, unless you've already noticed, are positive. Does it have limitations? Oh, absolutely it does. And are some people going to have a problem with it? Absolutely. Some people are definitely going to have a problem with it. And I do have some problems with it already, as I've mentioned. But as an overall thing, I'm actually looking forward to going upstairs into the living room and just using it, jotting down ideas and spending time with this device. And I haven't had that in a really, really long time from a product from reMarkable. In fact, I haven't had that from reMarkable 1, because reMarkable 2 was always like too fragile, too kind of finicky and stuff. This one, nah, I feel safe using this one. And that immediately puts me into a far more relaxed state and wanting to use it more and wanting to spend more time with it. I know that this is priming me for high expectations for this one while I'm testing it. Maybe that's going to be a problem. I'm going to try and remain objective and kind of subdue those expectations. But yeah, it tickles my fancy. What about you? Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye!